Our Stephen Nelson is in Arlington as we speak. Stephen, have you been able to survey the turf for yourself firsthand, or are they still keeping you in the parking lot?
No, they won't let me in, Matt. They're like, if you're not Matt Vasgersian, you're not getting in here until noon local time. And I said, you know what, though? Some say that I'm Matt and Ron Darling's son, so can't, by proxy, can I get in that way? And they still wouldn't let me in.
Well, let's talk about the Rangers a little bit, because, and correct me if I'm wrong here, the Rangers are a perfect example of a team for whom the 60-game sprint puts everything in play. We don't know what they're going to be, so why not push in? Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. Listen, I think there's a quiet competitiveness and optimism around this ball club, because in a division that's expected to be quite noisy, with the Houston Astros, the A's at a playoff spot, the Halos made a splash bringing in Anthony Rendon. A lot of folks are sleeping on Texas. And if you talk about a 60-game sample, think back to last year when the Rangers got off to a quality start, and through 60 games, they had a playoff spot in the American League. Now, cooled off as the season went on. They did lose Joey Gallo, who was playing at an MVP level, and they didn't have the depth of starting pitching that they figured to in 2020. And despite that, they still finished with an 11-game win improvement from a season ago, and the culture has been established with Chris Woodward as manager. So heading into 2020, which has been a decade, it feels like, this offseason, it's easy to forget that Corey Kluber is now a Texas Ranger, that Jordan Lyles and Kyle Gibson have been added to the staff, with Lance Lynn, who's going to be the opening day starter, and Mike Minor, who started opening day a year ago. So I don't think that any baseball fan who's been paying attention and recognizes what kind of club and what kind of culture they're building here in Texas is going to forget about the Rangers, because in this sprint, and they can run as fast as anybody. They showed last year.
They've built a new club, they've built a new culture, they've built a new ballpark that you're standing outside of. And I know that some of the players have talked about, on the occasion they've taken BP there, and by some of the players I mean Joey Gallo, they've already started lamenting the dimensions, talking about how it plays big. What has been discussed in terms of how games are going to play in the new ballpark?
Listen, I don't think any professional player wants to hear from Joey Gallo complaining about pop. I mean, what did Chris Woodward tell you the other night? He could hit it out of Yellowstone. So I think Joey Gallo is going to be fine, but there is the acknowledgement that I think Ron alluded to a couple minutes ago, that you can't just pop it up to right field anymore and have it lead the yard. But there's a positive side of that spectrum as well, and Chris Woodward said there's a lot of hits to be had in the field. With that turf, it's going to play fast. So if you look at players like Rougned Odor, who they're relying on to get off to a hot start and be aggressive on the base pass. They led the AL in stolen bases a year ago. There's a positive to be had there from an offensive perspective. And no pitchers are going to be complaining, like that staff I was talking about. That's good in its own right already. But now that they know that this yard is seemingly going to play a little bit larger, they're okay with that, especially with the legendary Texas heat, which I can confirm out now, even though I'm in the shade.
All right, so 12:17 Eastern Standard Time, just after 11 o'clock for you in that time zone. At what time do they let you in? When can we go to you with an actual report from inside the facility?
Noon local time is when the doors will open to the media to get in there and check out the baseball activities. And if folks missed it earlier, I did say that don't expect a full-on simulation, inter-squad scrimmage here today. They're going to build up to that on Sunday. You know, they'll play defense, they'll run bases and all that later in the weekend. Now it's just kind of getting their reps in, making sure they get their workouts in, socially distanced, of course, using both facilities here across the street, Globe Life Park, Globe Life Field. But yeah, as soon as we're done here, Matt, as soon as you let me go, we'll pack up the crew and we'll head inside to Globe Life Field, and then we'll kind of survey the landscape. And I mean, we're just dying to hear the crack of a bat and the mitts popping a little bit, that's for sure.
Consider yourself released, my friend. Pack them up, get them inside, and we'll talk to you, talk to you in an hour. There he goes. He's going to pack out his own gear and schlep it in there himself.